The Finals MVP award was introduced to the NBA in 1969, and since then, many incredibly deserving players have taken home the award. With that being said, not every award winner was universally agreed upon by the basketball community. Today, I've put together my list of the biggest Finals MVP snubs in basketball history, and let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my rankings. Number 5. JoJo White over Dave Cowens in 1976. This was a 6-game series where the Celtics defeated the Phoenix Suns 4-2, securing their second championship in 3 years. JoJo White was the Celtics starting point guard, and he's an NBA Hall of Famer. JoJo had some really great performances throughout the series, like in Game 5 when he played a total of 60 minutes in a triple overtime victory. In that contest, he dropped 33 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds on 52% shooting. That game specifically is known to many people as, quote, the greatest game ever played. Obviously, being the standout performer in one of the most iconic games of basketball history will certainly help your chances of securing the Finals MVP. The thing is, JoJo was pretty inconsistent throughout that series, and had some really disappointing nights as well. Like in Game 2, when he shot only 2 of 12 from the field, and in the championship-clinching game, he was only 5 of 15. Cowens, on the other hand, was much more consistent in his production throughout that series. And when you look at their numbers side by side, it seems pretty clear that Cowens was the more deserving player. Another thing to consider is how rebounding was one of the major deciding factors in this series, as Boston significantly out-rebounded the Suns throughout the finals, which translated to more possessions and more second-chance opportunities. Obviously, the player who deserves the most credit for that was Dave Cowens, as he averaged a monstrous 16.3 rebounds per game. JoJo White certainly wasn't the most awful choice, which is why this is only the 5th spot on my list. But when you look at the series as a whole, it seems at least somewhat clear that Cowens was in fact the correct choice. Number 4. James Worthy over Magic Johnson in 1988. Now let me be clear, James Worthy is my second favorite player of all time, just behind Kobe Bryant. When I was around 5 or 6 years old, I used to play basketball with my swimming goggles on, just because I wanted to look like Big Game James. So obviously, it's not easy for me to say that Magic was the more deserving player, but it's the honest truth. These finals were a hard-fought 7-game series between the Lakers and the Detroit Pistons, and the 7th game was one of the all-time great classics, where James Worthy definitely stood out amongst the crowd. Now there's 2 reasons why I believe they gave this award to Worthy instead of Magic. The first is voter fatigue. This was the Lakers' 5th championship of the decade, and Magic had already been given the Finals MVP award 3 times, including the previous season where they had just defeated the Boston Celtics in the finals. When a player starts winning a voting-based award over and over again, people start to look around in order to find a new suitable candidate for the award. In this case, James Worthy fit the bill. The other reason why I believe the voters picked Worthy over Magic is because the voters tend to put too much emphasis on the final impressions. Like I said earlier, James Worthy was clearly the best player on the court for the deciding 7th game, as he put up a jaw-dropping stat line of 36 points, 16 rebounds, and 10 assists on 68% shooting. So yeah, he was the most impressive player in the most suspenseful game of that season. But the thing is, Magic was clearly the better and more impactful player throughout the vast majority of the series. Here are the averages in the 1988 finals next to one another, and with this, you can clearly see that Magic should have the edge. But it gets the point across even better if we look at each game individually. In Game 1, Magic was clearly the better player, as Worthy was unusually inefficient. In Game 2, it was a legitimate toss-up. In Game 3, Magic was better. It's also worth mentioning that Magic put up these solid performances while battling the flu in Games 2 and 3. In Game 4, it wasn't even close, as Worthy basically disappeared this night, missing much of the game due to foul trouble, which is a major reason why Detroit got the blowout victory. Again, in Game 5, the edge goes to Magic, who dished out a remarkable 17 assists. In Game 6, Magic nearly had 20 assists to go along with his 22 points. Finally, in Game 7, we have a game where Worthy was clearly the better player, and working in his favor was the fact that it was the last impression of the series. As much as I love Big Game James, and as big as he was in the clutch, Magic was clearly the more deserving player based on the series as a whole. Number 3. Cedric Maxwell over Larry Bird in 1981. This was a 6-game series where the Celtics defeated the Houston Rockets 4-2. Cedric "Cornbread" Maxwell is an underrated player and someone who was truly impactful for the Celtics throughout the playoffs. He was the Celtics' leading scorer and was extremely efficient while doing it. On the other hand, Larry impacted the game in more ways than Maxwell did. Here's the two players' stats next to one another. And although it's clear that Maxwell was better at scoring this series, Bird led both teams in assists and steals, while being an absolute beast on the boards. In fact, he averaged roughly double the amount of rebounds of his 7-foot center teammate Robert Parrish. Rebounding was a huge point of emphasis heading into this series, since the Rockets had one of the greatest rebounders of all time, Moses Malone. Because of Bird, the Celtics out-rebounded the Rockets over the course of the series, regardless of the fact that Houston had the league's leading rebounder. Not only was Larry running the Celtics offense as the main facilitator, but without Bird's presence and grit under the rim, the Celtics certainly lose their rebounding advantage, and probably end up losing the series as well. Maybe there's an angle for the Celtics' leading scorer, but when you consider the context of the series and all the various ways Bird impacted the game, he seems to be the clear choice to me in 1981. Number 2. Andre Iguodala over Steph Curry in 2015. This was a 6-game series where the Golden State Warriors defeated an extremely short-handed Cavaliers team. This is recent enough history that I'm sure most of you will remember it. Plain and simple, giving the award to Andre Iguodala was a narrative-based move, and the argument itself was one of the dumbest narratives I've ever heard. The voters gave Iguodala the award mostly for the solid job he did defensively on LeBron James. Now, did he do a decent job defending LeBron? Absolutely, but I also think it was extremely overblown. LeBron shot only 39.8% over the course of the series. With that being said, he did nearly average a 35-point triple-double over the course of the finals, so it's not like he completely shut him down. On the other hand, you have Steph Curry, who was clearly more productive than Iggy was, in a variety of ways. If you want to give the efficiency edge to Iguodala, don't. It seems like many people have forgotten this, but Iguodala was a major liability from the free throw line this series. Out of all of the Golden State players, Iggy had the second most free throw attempts overall, and he shot a pathetic 34.7% over the course of the finals. Just to emphasize how bad that truly was, consider how Shaquille O'Neal is famous for his terrible free throw shooting, yet his percentage in the finals is tremendously higher than Iggy's was this series. Honestly, I remember being dumbfounded at the end of the finals that they gave the MVP to the guy I've been watching throw up uncontested bricks all series. Because of the boneheaded move of giving the award to Iguodala, this built up a negative narrative about Curry never winning a finals MVP, which wasn't completely destroyed until Curry finally won the award in 2022. But the truth is, that narrative never should have been a thing in the first place, because Curry was clearly the more deserving player in 2015. Number 1. Wes Unsel over Elvin Hayes in 1978. This was a hard-fought 7-game series that ultimately saw the Washington Bullets defeat the Seattle Supersonics. Yesterday, I went back and watched much of this series, just to try to figure out what the heck the voters were thinking when they gave the award to Unseld over Hayes. And to this day, I can confidently say that I still have no idea. Wes Unseld certainly had a solid impact on the Bullets' chances, and he was viewed as the leading veteran on that team. But let's be honest, he wasn't even close to being the best player in these finals. When you look at their numbers side by side, Hayes absolutely crushes this comparison, as he averaged more than double his amount of points per game, more rebounds, way more steals, and way more blocks. The only major stat Unseld had the advantage in was assists, but even that wasn't a huge deal, as Unseld was only third on the team in assists over that series. Unseld probably wasn't even the second most deserving player in the finals, as the bullet small forward Bobby Dandridge had a fantastic series of his own. For goodness sake, in games 2 and 3, Wes Unsel only scored 2 points, on incredibly poor shooting from the field, while Elvin Hayes basically carried the team on his back, putting up 25 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 blocks in Game 2, and then putting up 29 points, 20 rebounds, and 2 steals in Game 3. What makes the entire thing even weirder is that in the final seconds, as Game 7 was ending, the commentator for the CBS broadcast stated that Bobby Dandridge was the winner of the Finals MVP award. Yet when they returned from the commercial break, it was Wes Unsel who was being handed the MVP trophy. If something like this happened today, Twitter would absolutely explode, claiming that Elvin Hayes was straight up robbed of the award. People like me would be making constant videos about how this was the worst snub of my lifetime. And much of the basketball community would be speculating if there was some secret nefarious reason as to why the award was given to Unseld over Hayes. So what do you guys think? What are some of the biggest finals MVP snubs that you've seen? Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.